Hello and welcome to the 2025 Autumn Independent Schools Show. I'm delighted to be hosting the opening discussion here in the Think Academy Theatre, and thank you so much for all joining us. As Tatler's education editor, I spend every day visiting schools, chatting to leading educationalists and writing the leading public and prep schools reviews for the annual Tatler Schools Guide. However, this year it's been hard to keep up with so many prep and senior school mergers, big consortium acquisitions, new openings, and that's before we consider fees, politics and legal concerns. In my role as an educational consultant, I hear from understandably worried parents. How do these changes affect my child and their education? So today I'm joined by an eminent panel of guests to help allay any concerns and answer your pressing questions. Please may I introduce Robert Lewis, partner at Mishcon Reya's education group, where he's built a market-leading practice supporting private individuals and educational institutions at all levels, predominantly focusing on complex matters. The wonderful Suzie Longstaff is managing director at Duke's Education, the largest premium education group in the UK, and one of the fastest growing families of schools in Europe. I know her previously as the hugely popular head of Putney High School. And finally, Rachel Jane is deputy editor of Muddy Stilettos and a national journalist with more than 20 years in the industry. So, top expert. We have so much to cover. But firstly, coming to you, Suzie, Duke's is currently opening about one school a month. Wow. How do you keep each school unique? And when someone like Duke's takes over a school, how are parents and pupils impacted?
Well, yes, we're saying one school a month. Well, actually, sometimes you wake up and Duke's has acquired two schools overnight. Actually, Duke's Education is a fantastic organisation that educates about 25,000 students now in the UK and Europe. And when we acquire a school, the first thing is to keep that magic in a school. All schools are fabulous. You're looking for a school for your children that has something special, that really cares about your children. So Duke's, a big focus for Duke's is leading with heart and making sure the heart of the school is still there. So the first thing we do is we go and we don't change anything. But actually as a school, and the schools that I oversee in London, of which there are so many local ones, Knightsbridge School, Eaton Square Prep, Eaton House the Manor, London Park Schools, Broomwood Schools, all schools very local to here, which are Duke's schools, all have something very unique and special about them. So when a school joins Duke's, makes that decision to join our family, we look at building that family and keeping the heart. So that's what you'll see.
Okay, thank you. And Rachel, what's your experience when a small independent school is taken over by a big consortium?
So I think quite naturally parents are a bit rattled. I mean, I think any change within a school, you will understand that as well, Tori, you know, they definitely just kind of don't like uncertainty. And that's the same if a head leaves. They just want to know that things aren't going to dramatically change. Or I suppose if they're a bit disgruntled and maybe the school needs a bit more investment and the wheels have been maybe slightly falling off recently, that it's going to be shored up. And so I suppose it's confidence. They want to know that their child's education is on track, that it's going to be a sort of seamless transition. So that would be my experience of it, where parents just want to have a sort of collective hug from whoever's taking over to reassure them that it's going to be okay.
I think you're really right there. And Rob, is this ever an issue that crosses your path?
Yes, it does. And because I'm in a unique position of acting for both schools and for families. I think what's interesting is when it comes up for families. So parents can often be quite put out when there's a merger, particularly when things like a single-sex school merging into a co-educational school and what that means. And they frequently come and look, and I'm advising them to look at your existing terms and conditions and engage in what the process is. But it's coming up quite a lot.
And Suzie, currently I'm seeing two changes. One is a buyout by a big group. So this week we had Royal Hospital School announce its purchase by the Inspire Learning Group. And secondly is a merger of between two established independent public and prep schools. So this week we saw Benedon merge with Orwell Park. What do you see as the reasons behind these changes, and are they generally a good thing?
We're seeing this a lot. Radley Group, for example, have merged with several prep schools in their local area. It is a good thing, especially at the moment, because we're seeing an existential shift in the market. We're all having to adapt, and if you look back over the decades of education, there have been many seismic shifts in the market. For example, I don't know if you're as old as me, remember when direct grant schools, when the government used to fund grammar schools and direct grant schools, and that changed. The market changed completely. Again, we're at this point now of shifting. Schools joining together are doing it for strength in numbers and also strength in expertise. Within Duke's, for example, you can get expertise in education, quality assurance, making through economies of scale, the group linking together and supporting each other. So schools merging and schools joining part of groups such as Duke's Education are pretty much the same thing, but actually they're joining a family. At the moment, schools need that support from each other, and that's what we offer.
Rachel, this week, the Independent Schools Council have said that it's the all-girls schools that are possibly seeing a bigger dip in numbers of parents moving them from private to state. What are your thoughts on that, and what have you seen?
I mean, it's surprising, isn't it? I was actually surprised by that statistic, if I'm really honest, because I do feel that, you know, when I speak to heads and teachers and kind of parents who have their girls in single-sex schools, that actually it's the single-sex girls' schools that have quite a big role to play, just so that they, you know, it's a very different atmosphere to a co-ed setting, and obviously it's all down to personal family choice and what you want for your child, but that, you know, there is this sort of great energy in girls' schools. So I think maybe it's also a birth rate issue. You know, I know in my own children's class, there's like 20 boys to 5 girls. I mean, it is extraordinary. But then 10 years ago, the opposite was true. So I don't know if we just need to all just have more children, or and maybe that is the answer. I mean, obviously there was the news story about London being childless in the future, which seems mad to me. But yeah, I think it's probably a dip that will rectify itself at some point.
I think the research shows that there's huge benefits to single-sex education,
Massively
but most specifically for girls. They really see an enormous value added, don't they?
They absolutely do. And I just think because they don't have the distraction, there is this sort of real energy to kind of be whoever you want to be and whatever that looks like. And it's not really about being the most academic, or it's just about finding your lane and absolutely soaring. And you just really feel that every time you go into a girls' school, to be fair.
Absolutely, and a boys' school, because they're specialists in boys, you know, and there's a lot to be said for that.
Having been headmistress of a London day school for a number of years, and now running a group which has many co-educational schools. Also, I'm the mother of twin girls, 13-year-old girls who stayed at Putney High School when I left it a couple of years ago, who are really happy there. And it's about, for you, finding the school that's right for your children. So all schools have a place in the market. My twins, one is purely girls' school only, and the other probably could have coped in both, but is so happy in it at Putney. Find a school where your children will be happy. What we are seeing is a lot of the traditionally boys' schools are going co-ed. So that is what is putting pressure on some fabulous girls' schools. That is the shift in the market. And there are more places for girls across London. Now, London, you have huge choice, amazing choice in schools. There are the best schools, some of the best schools in the world are in London. You are really spoilt for choice. There are girls' schools, there are co-ed schools, there are boys' schools, but there are more places for girls across, which is why you often find classes in co-ed schools aren't quite as full as the boys. But for the girls' schools, I think in all change, they're sharpening up their axe, and they offer fantastic resources for girls, and co-ed schools offer fantastic resources for boys and girls. Find the right school for your children.
100%. And Rob, coming to your area of expertise now, do you feel parents and potentially schools are becoming more litigious? Are they coming to you more quickly? And what can we do to sort of quieten this down in a way?
I think that parents almost certainly are becoming more litigious. I'm sure if you speak to most head teachers, they will say they have an increased amount of confrontational conversations and correspondence and maybe even litigation. In terms of what's driving it, I think there are multiple factors. I mean, I think we have a little bit more of a legalistic and confrontational society than we might have done 10 or 20 years ago. It's good for lawyers. I'm not sure how good it is for everybody else. I think that the way that school fees have increased so quickly ahead of inflation does inevitably create a pressure on schools to deliver, and an expectation from parents that the standards are going to be really high, and an upset when the standards don't meet their expectations. I think also culturally, we've had quite a significant decline in deference. And in terms of old-fashioned sort of British institutions, there aren't many more old-fashioned British institutions than English independent schools. And that kind of culture of deference and the teacher knows best, it still permeates under the surface. And that perhaps rubs up against a more cosmopolitan international parent base, but also just a generational change in terms of what people's expectations are. People aren't deferential to their doctors. They're definitely not deferential to their lawyers, I can tell you that. And they're not going to be deferential necessarily to the head teachers. And sometimes that can rub against each other to create tensions that perhaps didn't used to exist.
I think that's completely true. I mean, there used to be very much the attitude of you dropped your child off and the education was entirely the school's business. And I think that's changed, hasn't it, Suzie?
We were just laughing about this a minute ago, because I'd say that I find that with the rise of ChatGPT, parents are more discerning, but are also more likely to go to ChatGPT to write their letter to you. And we were just saying, would the role of the lawyer be gone in a few years? No, is the answer. But we get more letters from that have been created by generative AI, and trying to work out what exactly they're saying is sometimes a challenge. But I don't actually see more litigation. I just see more anxiety. People want to know what they're getting value for their money, and also they're worried about their children. That's what I see more, because they think the world is a scary place, and how are we setting up children for the future? And that is our job as educationalists, to do that really well.
And Rob, what areas do you particularly see parents and schools coming to you about? What are there specific areas of concern?
The most common one is student discipline and exclusions, and where something has happened, and either there is a child, the parents are coming to me because their child is potentially going to be excluded, or that they are the victims of something that's happened within school, and the schools will come to me about those similar situations. I mean, but that's probably the most common. But also sometimes it's just parents who are not happy with the school and are wanting a vehicle for challenging the school about something. What has fed quite strongly into my practice over the past few years have also just been what I'd best describe as culture war issues, and schools becoming the kind of a sort of arena for wider political and cultural battles. I find them very interesting. I'm not sure that anyone really benefits from them being fought out inside schools, but that seems to be happening at times.
Rachel, coming to you. The current government's already introduced VAT on fees, and we've since seen, apparently, according to the ISC, 81 independent schools close. What do you think Bridget Phillipson will go to next, or will she leave us alone?
Oh my goodness. I mean, is there anything else that she can go for? Maybe there is. Do you know, I really hope that she leaves the sector alone. I think it's been a seismic kind of moment for the industry. It's, you know, for parents as well, it's been super stressful. You know, essentially this notion that, you know, all private schools are full of children who have absolutely loaded parents is a bit of a fantasy. You know, there are hardworking mums and dads, you know, literally sacrificing everything to get their kids through private education. Their choice, of course. But I just think that, you know, there's a reason, you know, they're doing the right thing. There aren't enough places in the state system for all of these extra children, or the funds to actually kind of, you know, we know the state sector is really straining financially. So I just hope that they do leave them alone. But that said, I think in light of all of this, that parents have become much more savvy in terms of, it's not just a case of going to a dinner party and, you know, your neighbour is sending their child to one school and therefore you all send them there. I think they're looking for value for money, and therefore what that looks like is not necessarily just about academic record. It's about all the extra stuff that you get, you know, whether well-being is prioritised, what opportunities those children are given when they're there. It may well be space, facilities, you know, it's just about looking at that bigger picture. So I think,
and we mustn't forget SEND as well.
SEND, exactly.
Which independent schools do such an incredible job on.
Absolutely. And I just think, you know, we're kind of getting into the granular detail about what your child really needs. And I think, you know, and I think also sometimes London can feel a bit like the educational equivalent of the Hunger Games. You know, it's just brutal. So eyes are naturally kind of looking beyond that. Do we take the stress out of doing all of the exams? Or are we finding schools where, you know, it's a bit easier to get in? Or do we look further afield and actually start thinking about what that offers and what that looks like? And I think that's where I see the picture at the moment.
Suzie, do you worry about more of the smaller schools closing? Is this something that concerns you?
I think in this time when the market is changing, there will be change. And yes, schools will close, but also new schools will open because this is a time of innovation. For example, Duke's is opening a very large school in Twickenham in September 27, Nella Hall, at the old, if you're interested, the old military music academy, 33 acres of lush green fields with a lovely heritage building. This is a time of innovation. Our top performing school, Cardiff Sixth Form College, which is the top performing school in the country for A-levels, is building new boarding facilities and is just about to move into a building by the Welsh Assembly in Cardiff.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
this is a real time
of
innovation.
I was at Brighton yesterday and they're just opening 2 new boarding houses and they said they can't get enough boarders in. So I think it is showing that when schools are really offering top class everything, parents are still very keen to sign up. And Rob, is there advice you can give to parents if they're worrying that their school might close and what they'll be doing for their child if that should happen?
I think my advice would be, I think it's 2 ways to look at it. First of all, you know, if your child is currently at a school that you're concerned about, to just keep on top of what's going on and what your options are and what they might mean for you, and sort of plan ahead and think. And there's plenty of information available. And at the moment, as I think most people in this room are, if you're a school shopper, there is so much information available. I mean, if all the schools are either going to be charities or at least have a limited company where they're publishing their financial information on Companies House, you can download their accounts and look at them to get a sense of, is this school financially performing well or is it potentially in distress? What do you see the medium to long-term future of this place is going to be? Subscribe to the sector newsletters and journals to get an idea of what's going on, because when there's mergers and changes happening, that's where you'll find them out, and ask around, so you can sort of keep ahead and think, is this school both right for my child right now, and thinking for how long you're going to want it. Is it still going to be right for my child in 5 years or 7 years or 14 years? I don't know. So.
I think that's really excellent advice. Thank you. And on a happier note, where do we feel are the educational hotspots in the UK? I hear of so many parents thinking of the Cotswolds as a great place to live. That education-wise, there'd be so much better in southwest Oxfordshire, known as the Vale of the White Horse, which has the most incredible selection of schools from brilliant preps like Molesford, Pinewood, St Hugh's, which now goes to 16, and Cot Hill, which has now gone co-ed, plus amazing senior schools like Abingdon, St Helens, Downhouse, Radley College, Pangbourne, I could go on, and Bradfield, and all with easy access to Oxford. So, Suzie, where do you think is a hotspot?
Are you moving to Oxford, Tori?
I might have insider knowledge.
London is a hotspot. I mean, as I just said, this is such a high density of the best schools in the world in London. I'm a school inspector in my spare time too, because I really love going into other schools. I'm fascinated by seeing how other schools operate and and looking for the quality in different schools. In London, there are some outstanding schools. Yes, Oxfordshire as well. Depends if you want boarding. So the large boarding schools tend to be in the country or in Brighton or in the West Country. But I mean, I've worked in the London market for over 20 years, and I love it. And I love the schools in London. You are so spoilt for choice. So if you're looking for a day school in London, you're sorted.
And what about you, Greg?
Well, obviously London is oversubscribed. It's super busy, but I think we are seeing people moving out of London, and you're right. Obviously, South Oxfordshire has some fantastic schools. Berkshire also, which is obviously where I'm from, but so I'm super biased. But as you say, Bradfield College is super popular. Wellington, but actually, I think also parents are probably looking further afield again, up to Yorkshire. It's only 2 hours on the train. You can fly to Scotland, enjoy that sort of outdoors, fresh air, as I say, space, opportunity, facilities. So I think if you've got the connection on trains, we're sort of seeing lots of interest in Yorkshire and Scotland, and then obviously the home counties do very well because basically people are still commuting into work. So I think, it's always worth looking further afield. Basically value for money. Fees are probably a little bit lower, and you get some great education facilities and curriculums up there. So
I couldn't agree more. And in some ways, going to Scotland, by the time you've flown there, it's almost as easy.
Oh my God!
As getting the train.
It's easier than getting the GWR. I can assure you that in the morning.
Yes.
Can I just challenge you on the fact of the Hunger Games in London? Because I think the market's changed in London for that. Because there are more new schools actually opening up in London than you see. The number of places are increasing, and what we're seeing in the market is actually there is less of the Hunger Games than it was. I would say to you, as parents, if you're applying, you will apply for more than one school. So take it with a pinch of salt. It's as I say to the sixth formers when they're applying for university, don't look at the number of applications because everyone's applying to more than one university. Take it with a pinch of salt. You will get into school that's right for your child. You may not have to play the Hunger Games to do it, and you may not have to move to Scotland just yet.
But I think, Suzie, you're completely right. But I think it's also there being a very realistic and holistic consideration of what is best for your child. And I think, yes, we've got, here we are on the doorsteps of Westminster, which is obviously one of the most phenomenally amazing schools in the whole of the world, probably. But it's not for every child, and I think that's super important for everyone to be realistic about that. If you tutor a child into somewhere like Westminster, there will come a point where they struggle because the academia is so incredible and strong. Whereas they might be really happy at a more wide-rounded school, a St James's, a London Park school. I mean, you've got a brilliant school where children who may be struggling a bit to go into school can do one day on and one day off, haven't you?
Yes, so we launched a hybrid school where some children who prefer to learn online can learn online for 4 days a week, come into school 1 day a week. Again, very different models. And I think there's increasing recognition from parents today finding the right school for your children rather than fighting for the big name.
I think post-COVID, that has become absolutely crucial to really consider your child and what's going to make them happy.
Can I chip in about
please,
this one? Just because I've got a little bit of personal to this as well, because I've got a year 5 daughter. So we're in that kind of thinking about 11 plus and and it's very strange doing what I do and the knowledge that I have while also being a shopper in the market. I think my view is I agree with Suzie. I think that the London school market can feel like the Hunger Games, partly because that's what goes on in parents' heads and dinner parties and what they say to each other. I just can't get myself stressed about it. It doesn't seem to me. My worry is the money, honestly, not the which is the right school. That's what I sleepless nights about. The reality is, if you pick a range of schools, we already have an idea as to which schools my daughter's going to apply for. We're doing a range academically so that we don't kind of put all our eggs in certain baskets. I know all the schools really well. Most of them, I know the head teachers. I've been in there. They're all good schools. In some ways, I think agreeing with what Tori was saying as well, it's sort of up to my daughter in a way to work out which ones she thinks she feels most settled in, which ones suit her the best. But the reality is that London is such an attractive market because there's so many good schools. And ultimately, let's say we pick 5 schools that we're going, all of those schools are going to give my daughter a good education. They really are. And so I don't want to put too much stress on her. I don't want to put too much stress on myself and my partner. It'll just, we'll go. And I think where you can get yourself very stressed out is by focusing on, say, 1 school or 2 schools and thinking, my child has to go to that school, because that then suddenly reduces your probability. And particularly in London, you just don't need to do that. The schools are so good.
And I think that actually is true across the country. I think all of the schools that are in my guide, all the public schools, if you have a super bright child that's destined for Oxbridge, they will get your child into Oxford. They will do their job. And if you have a child that's much better suited to Oxford Brookes or to go and do an apprenticeship, they will achieve that. And I think it's super important that everyone recognises that all of our schools can cater to a whole mix and cross section of children.
Yeah. In short, yes, I agree.
I mean, I agree as well. All I'm saying really when I describe it as the Hunger Games is that actually there's so much chatter. There's a lot of pressure on parents. Like, you are all chatting to each other. Those top schools, which are super academic, as you rightly point out, are considered, there's a kudos to that. And obviously everybody wants a little slice of that pie. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that happens, and that is just human nature. I agree. There are lots of fantastic schools, and actually all quite unique. I visited quite a few of the Duke's Education schools, and they are incredible and do things that are quite different. And I love that. As someone who goes into hundreds of schools all the time, finding something really unique and special about it is really important. And you can see that their passion for the pupils and for delivering for the parents and the children. So I totally agree. I'm just saying human nature is what it is, and we all want to have that kind of, they got into that brilliant school, and it's like in the top 1%.
There will always be the names. Awesome. There will always be the names. Now, on that amazing finishing point, I would like to open up to the can we have one question? Yes. I think we're nearly out of time, so just one. I don't quite know how it works. Here, Ella's coming.
Hi,
I'm a little bit worried that my daughter won't pass the 11 plus. So I appreciate you're saying there's lots and lots of choice in London, but what do you do if you're a parent who's in that situation? What would you recommend?
What do you mean by passing the 11 plus though? It's
she's really not very academic.
yeah.
So
Well, there are so many schools. Then come and talk to me after this, and I'll give you some advice.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, or look out of London, where there's a much wider range of academic
No, we can sort you out in London. We can.
Okay.
You don't need to move to Oxford or Scotland.
Are we allowed another question, or have we run out of time? No, we've completely run out of time. So please, I take this opportunity to thank my brilliant guests and thank you all for joining us.